Welcome to this live no power panel. I'm Noam, your regular host, and we are very excited. I'm very excited because we are going to be live together watching the first NDP leadership debate between five of the major candidates. Eve Engler, of course, has been excluded from this debate, um, supposedly according to the party, because his leadership paperwork was not submitted on time to go through the vetting process in order to get onto the stage tonight. I call bullshit on that. I don't believe that there's a reason why the party couldn't have gone through the process of vetting him in the more than 2 weeks he gave them after submitting his paperwork in order to get onto the stage tonight. But that being as it is, we're going to watch the five candidates debate. The five candidates debating are Heather McPherson, Avi Lewis, Rob Ashton, Tony McQuail, and Tennille Johnston. Today, Tennille Johnston uh, revealed that she had qualified in terms of the fundraising number to continue on in the race past the end of November deadline of additional $25,000 at that point. Tony McQuail, who had stopped his fundraising in order to help her achieve that number, has now announced that he is resuming his fundraising, and he has several days now and during this debate today in order to get him over the line. I did interview Tony McQuail recently. Please feel free to go and check that out on the channel if you're interested. I've also had Eve Engler on the podcast twice now, and we are working on getting the rest of the candidates on so that we can all hear from them together now. One other thing to mention is today I officially rejoined the NDP. I let my membership lapse, I believe it was 2019, after having been involved in the party for a number of years, including as a riding executive in several positions, and at one time as the president of the Brock NDP, Brock University NDP. I rejoined the party today in order to vote in this leadership election. I have not decided the rankings on my ballot at this point. I will be watching tonight's debate in part to help decide that. And I'll be revealing my rankings before voting for full transparency with you all, and to maybe help boost the candidates that I think deserve a boost for whatever my opinion counts for. Thank you so much for joining me. The debate is about to start. If you are new to the channel, please subscribe. If you're new or not, please like the stream, help us get seen by more eyes. It's really meaningful to have you all with me watching this debate together. One other thing to note, because this is Canada, I have some stuff that I'm going to be enjoying off to the side here. I won't be doing it on camera, and I'll mute myself while I'm doing it. But if you see me kind of move my head off to the side during a moment in the debate, that is what's going on there. Let's have some fun with it. This is going to be relatively serious, but it's also important to have fun where we can while we're talking about these sorts of things. We are waiting for the debate to start here. I am going to bring the stream up onto the side here. This is how we're going to be watching it. Let me know if you can see everything well. Feel free to chime in the chat if you want to be able to come in and share your own thoughts on what's going on in the debate. that'll be good to see and good to hear, and hopefully we can all enjoy this experience together. So here it is. Here is, it looks like Alexandre Boulerie starting us off here. That's fair because it is in Montreal. Let's see what's going on here. I am watching the English translation version.
To begin by acknowledging that we are located on indigenous unceded territory. We recognize that the Kenyan Gahaga Nation are the custodians of the lands and waters on which we gather today.
And I will be chiming in throughout the debate as kind of things become apparent that I want to say and that I want to highlight. But I'm not going to be chiming in to the point that we can't all hear what's being said from the candidates, because of course that's why we're here. This is kind of a reaction. Can you not hear me or the debate, Dave?
As Mark Carney's liberals increasingly govern like conservatives, the time has come for New Democrats to discuss how best to strengthen our party and reach out to those who share our values of social, environmental, and economic justice.
Can you hear any better now? Here, let me try removing it and bringing it back in. It's also that we're watching the English translation.
Good evening, everyone, to all those who are watching.
Is that better? Can you hear now?
Debate in the leadership contest for the NDP. First debate held here in Montreal, live, and we'll have 90 minutes to debate the issues.
The audio is on.
That matters to Canadians, that matters to NDP members, that matters to progressives. And Canadians will have a chance to hear from them, some of us for the first time. The teams were developed with submissions from people across the country, from NDP members who submitted questions, who are interested in this race. And they are as follows. They've been selected, 5 of them. Affordability and the cost of living, Indigenous justice and reconciliation, winning and organizing in Quebec.
Is that louder? Is that better? Perfect.
And the NDP's path forward.
A part of it is just going to be that the translation is slightly quieter, and that's the way kind of these things tend to work in these situations, and that's unfortunate, but it's a part of why. Once again, if you're new to the channel here, thanks for joining. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Please like the stream, and let's get this going.
Abby Lewis, Heather McPherson.
Here's the candidates. It's kind of interesting seeing David Lewis on the screen there, given that Avi Lewis is one of the candidates. It's, some maybe nepotism in terms of the visuals, but that's all good. He's an important legacy within the party, and that's a valuable part of his campaign.
So thank you to our interpreters who are going to help us understand.
Once again, I've just rejoined the NDP after a number of years not involved. We've been covering this race pretty in-depthly, and we'll continue to do so.
One question per team, and each contestant will have the opportunity to answer. Then there will be a debate, an open debate for 8 minutes. There are 2 rounds of rapid-fire questions, which I'm going to ask to get to know people a little better. And then we have...
Oh, great, the personality questions, what matters to us all.
Closing remarks, 45 seconds for each contestant. Les candidats ont reçu l'instruction de répondre aux questions.
Candidates have been asked to answer questions in the language in which they will be asked, and the opening and closing remarks must be in French. Candidates who do not obey with this rule, I'll have to interrupt them, unfortunately, and it will be the same rules when the questions will be asked.
We, of course, know that there are candidates on stage who are not very bilingual at all, and that the most bilingual candidate in the race isn't on stage. And so we'll see what goes on there as we continue, because this is a bilingual debate.
We'll begin with Heather McPherson. People in Canada are experiencing very difficult moments right now. Many families are doing everything they should, but they are still having a hard time nonetheless.
Hmm.
They need a party that stands up for them.
Heather McPherson to me talks so much in platitudes.
And it must again be the
From what
NDP.
I've heard her speak in this race so far, I really want to knight
Time
them to try and
time
drill her on
because we need a
specifics of
leader who
policy,
brings people together,
because
who
that matters
presents a
so
plan,
much
who opens the
specifically in a
door,
left wing
and
race.
who gives space for everyone. A leader with who will work with the base and has the sufficient experience for the party. We'll hear from Avi Lewis now.
Okay.
Your work
Yeah, like I
Canadians
said,
working
just
hard,
very platitude
and
heavy.
nonetheless, you're having a hard time uh, making ends meet. And you know why? Because a handful of large corporations are increasing the price of everything, filling their pockets in the process. In this context of a crisis, we can't use the same old prudent recipe or formula we had with the NDP in the past. We have to have a tax on wealth. We need public options, a new Green Deal for Canada. These are pragmatic solutions and popular solutions as well. These solutions will meet this crisis, the daily emergencies,
I
rally
like
efforts,
so
housing
much of what
reform
Avi
to
Lewis
win.
has to say in this
Thank you, Mr.
race.
Lewis.
I just
We'll hear
wish
from Mr.
that
McQuail now.
he,
I'm a
I don't know, I don't even know what it
I'm
is.
a biological farmer. I'm a militant for political economic justice.
I love that Tony McQuail calls himself a militant. It's
The goal of
so
ours are, I think,
important
redistribution,
that
regeneration,
there
and
are
redesign.
people who see
We
themselves that
represent
way
a
in these kinds of
premier.
movements.
The majority-based uninominal system needs to be replacement. We need proportional replacement in our electoral system to rebuild a government which is working for the people and for the environment as well. Thank you, Mr. McQuail. Mr.
All of them at least are
Ashton
proving
now.
capable to deliver their opening
I'm
statements in
Rob
French.
Ashton. I've spent my life in Vancouver
That's
working on the
something.
docks. I'm defending the workers so that they can live with a good wage and in all due dignity. Today,
Feel free to
wealth is
chime in the
filling their
chat if you have
pockets
thoughts on the candidates.
while the rest of the people are paying the price. I understand the challenges facing real people. NDP was founded to give voice to workers. And this is what I
I'm
want to
really
bring
curious
back
about
to the
Rob
fore.
Ashton.
If you want an NDP that wins, one that's ready to fight, I'm your guy.
He's probably the person I've heard least from in
And
this
now,
race,
Tennille Johnston.
and I'm really curious about him.
Good evening. My name is Tennille Johnson, a Likashtal woman, an Indigenous person from Campbell River in BC. I'm a mother, a social worker, and a municipal counselor as well. And now
I I want to like
I'm
Tennille
running to
Johnston
become the
too. I
leader for
just like in
NDP.
what I've seen of
We
her,
need a leader
there's so few
who
specifics. There's
understands the
so
difficulties
few
Canadians are facing. And I will run
real
French
fundamentals covered.
because it's very important to do that.
And
Thank you,
I
Ms.
am
Johnston. Well,
hoping
the
that
ice has been
she'll
broken, the debate has been launched.
allow
I would like to remind everyone of
more
the
depth
rules
tonight.
for questions. Each candidate will have 45 seconds to respond to the question. Then we'll have the open debate afterwards for 8 minutes.
English. And here's the questions. We know that there is a cost of living crisis. Millions of Canadians are struggling to make ends meet. The price of essentials, the price of food, the price of many goods continue to rise. Housing comes to mind, of course. Income inequality is at record levels. Yet in the last election, the NDP came forward with many proposals, ideas like investments in non-market housing, cap on grocery prices, but instead they chose Mark Carney. So which policy proposal are you putting forward to address the cost of living crisis? And I'm going to start with Mr. Canada.
This is
Thank you,
the
my friend.
question.
You see, we built this country, but we're getting squeezed while billionaires are getting cashing in. We, well, we, when I get voted in as leader of the party, We're going to put caps on the prices of
Presumptuous.
groceries, on the internet that we all use, and on our cell phone bills. You see, my good jobs promise guarantees a good job for everybody that wants one.
I don't see the
But most
transition
importantly,
there.
we're going to give more power to the working class. And we're going to take
Good.
whatever power from the CEOs that we can take from them, because all the power belongs to workers.
There's a roughness to
Yes,
Rob
Mr.
Ashton that I kind of really like.
Thank
It's
you, Mr.
charming.
Ashton.
Thank you. We need to approach this at all levels from every way we can, including a guaranteed livable basic income, right to a national housing that's public, whether it's co-op or other public models. We need to invest in housing that's accessible. We need to help Canada feed Canadians. We need to break down interprovincial trade barriers for food producers and be able to feed ourselves through our own agricultural means. We have such an amazing opportunity with so many farmers, and Tony will probably speak to this later, where we have more than enough folks doing the great work to feed our country, but we have to enable them to do it. It was great to see other barriers broken down between provinces, but they left food behind. We need our food.
Thank you. Mr. Lewis,
That's-
your turn.
The cost of living
But
is
that's
not an issue.
yes,
It's
that
an
would
emergency.
address it.
And it's an emergency caused by market failure. What else to call it when Galen Weston is worth $18 billion?
Yeah, this
and
is the
Canadians
answer.
Are skipping meals to feed their kids.
Preach it, Avi.
The market is failing to provide essentials at a price that people can afford. And in an emergency, we expect the government to step in. That means a public
Yeah.
option for each of these necessities. Price caps, sure, to stabilize the price of groceries, but then public grocery stores to lower them. A public provider for phones and internet. A public housing developer and construction companies to build
Preach it.
1 million non-market homes.
This is the answer.
Public is not a dirty word. It's how we guarantee
Socialism.
Canadians a dignified life.
Thank you. Ms. McPherson.
The NDP
The
needs
cost
to
of
be a
living right
socialist
now for
party again.
Canadians is skyrocketing. People in Canada are struggling right now. And what we can do, the things that we could do right now to help those Canadians include things like putting in place my plan for housing. And that starts with declaring a national housing emergency so that we can mobilize the funds.
Okay.
The funds that we need to build homes so people have somewhere to live, so young people have a shot at owning a home, so folks that are living on the streets in our communities across this country get the supportive housing they require, housing like co-ops, housing like housing that we know
It's a valuable
Canadians across
answer,
this
but it
country
doesn't
deeply need.
truly
That's the one thing I'll be
address
working on.
the
Thank
full
you.
cost of living
Mr.
crisis
McQuail.
in the way that
My
like Avi
friends,
Lewis's
I first
answer
ran in
dealt with,
1980.
or even Rob Ashton's.
I've been
did.
listening to speeches and great ideas like the ones we've just heard for over 45 years. But unless we start fixing our relationship with the first past the post electoral system, none of this will
Tony
come to
McQuail
pass.
is just such
It
a
certainly
nice
hasn't
guy.
in the last 45 years in a complete, comprehensive, and well-organized way, because we sometimes get
Extraordinarily
stuck in a minority
left.
government situation.
Kyle.
We have to deal with first past the post, and that's why my first R is
I'm
representation.
a socialist.
Representation, so that actually we figure out how to get a hold of the levers of power and then bring in proportional representation so that there is some hope that the great ideas we have and are starting to put
No
forward
problem.
don't get disappeared.
We need a
with another
place where
phony
the
majority
leftists
government
come
that isn't
together
ours.
to watch
Thank
this
you.
kind
Thank
of
you, Mr.
thing
McQuail.
and really
It's now time to
bring
open
value
the,
to it
debate,
and
to
analyze
all
the candidates'
contestants. We have
responses
8 minutes.
from a way of
and we heard
pushing
a lot
them
about,
left
problems,
instead of
but
pulling
I'd
them
like
to
to
the
hear more
right,
about
the
solutions,
way that
concrete
most
solutions. Ms. McPherson.
So
establishment
I
New
have a jobs plan
Democrats
for young
try.
people. We know right now there's a
Dave,
crisis for employment for young people across this
yeah,
country.
I hear you.
And
I
we
hear
could
you.
put a plan in place. We could put a plan in place that made sure that, we could use the Canada Summers Job Program, but
I'm
make it
trying to
year-round.
give a
Invest
fair
in a green
hearing
climate
to
core
everyone,
program. The care
but
economy,
Heather is
in
definitely the
trade,
person who I'm
in
struggling with
careers
the
that young
most right
people
now
can start in.
to
Put a bursary in
hear
place, a
doing
student
anything
grant
but
to
kind of
help folks
mixing
with
continuity with a
apprentice-
slight
apprenticeship
twist on it,
or starting their
without
university or
actually
their college career.
truly
I think that would be a
challenging
great
the
solution to get young
establishment
people
of the
working.
party and the
Anyone
establishment
disagree?
of economic
Discuss.
thinking
Maybe just
that's
not necessarily
needed.
disagree, but
And
go
that
one step
some of the
further. I
candidates
think
are
we need free
trying to do
post-secondary
right now.
education. This has been a goal something I've been trying to champion for probably about 20 years since I was a part of the student movement.
I
We
I
have
hear
to
you,
have
Dave.
free post-secondary education. We have an insane amount of pressure on our economy because we don't have people to fill the jobs that we want to fill. And students can't go into post-secondary education.
I'm liking
and then
Avi too.
graduate
I
with a
like
mountain of
Avi.
debt
I like
and then try to
Tony.
survive in the
I
world that we
like
have
Eve
today.
Angler. I
So
hope
free
that they
free
let him
post-secondary
onto the stage
education would
next
provide
time.
that pathway for young people
And
to
I'm
get into the
liking,
professions that they
you
want to go
know,
into,
some of what I'm
and not
hearing
just
from
what they
Rob
have to go
Ashton.
into due to the pressures of the cost of living.
And
Well, we all
Tennille
have
is
great
saying some
solutions,
interesting
and
stuff
you're
right
going
now
to hear a
too.
lot of them tonight. They all cost money. And we face this question.
But yeah,
about
I
how
think
are you gonna
Avi is
pay
the
for it?
person who
Just
right
want to
now
remind
kind of is
everyone
bringing
that
it
we
all
live in a society
together
that is
the
awash in
most
wealth.
from what I'm seeing.
Big banks in Canada made $50 billion last year. Big oil
He also
made
has the
$40
legacy
billion
factor,
just a
which
few
is a
years before
valuable
that.
thing in Canadian
We
politics.
need a government that has the courage to fight on behalf of all of us and go and get the money where it is. So just as important as the public options, and we're in a period of market failure, we need the government to step up and step in. We also need a 1% on the 1%. We're proposing a wealth tax.
Avi feels a lot
1%
like the
on the
Zoran of
1%.
this race,
Just
yeah.
that little bit, which Galen Weston is not even going to notice a
And he's
rounding error on his
definitely
household
mounting
budget
kind of the
could generate
strongest
25 to
messaging
40
campaign out
billion
there.
dollars a year.
My
We
hope
need to go
is
get that
that
money
he
and
will
redistribute it
he'll
in the
be
form
able
of
to pull it
universal
out
public
and that
services
he'll be
for everyone.
uncompromising
Mr. Ashton wants to jump
around
in, and
it.
Mr. McQuail is
I
gonna
like
follow.
that
You
he
bet. So
talks about the party
cost
not
of living
being
is
left wing
ridiculous in
enough
this
and
country.
putting it in that
I got a
framework.
21-year-old daughter living at home right now. Madison's her name, and she'll never be able to move out, which is fine. I love her dearly, but but what we're looking at is we're looking
And
at
Rob is kind of the grand plan
houses that are unaffordable,
in
rents
the
that are
good way.
unaffordable. And then you compound that with the price of food. That's why an NDP led by me would be pushing caps on grocery prices. We have to triple the amount of houses that we build in this country. Public houses, co-op style, because that's the only way we're going to make life affordable for young people, as well as people my age. We also have to look at
Thanks
the
so
Bank
much
of
for
Canada.
joining the stream.
See, the Bank of Canada
Once
has a
again,
single mandate right now, and that's to
Please
lower
subscribe
inflation.
if you're not
But who
already.
cares about a low inflation rate
Like
if
the
we have
stream,
no
share it.
jobs? So the second point that we're going to be making the Bank of Canada look at is looking at jobs, a promise for every working Canadian to have a job. Those are the two promises that we're going to make sure that the Bank of Canada leans on.
I
to
like
help
that,
deal
but
with
it's
the
not
affordability crisis
enough,
in this country.
right?
So, Carl,
You need
we have to help people understand the
actual
obscene
cost of living
discrepancy
measures
of
that
wealth
go
in our
beyond
society.
just a work
And if I told
guarantee,
you
because a
had
work
a
guarantee
million
for
seconds to live,
minimum wage
you'd
job
have
doesn't
11
do
days.
very good.
But if I told you had a billion seconds to live, you'd have 31 years. And if I looked at how people are living on the street in
Yeah,
Ottawa,
Tony
when
used
we
that
had
line
the
in my interview
CLC
with him.
forum,
If you haven't
they
listened to
don't
my
have
interview with
any
Tony
seconds to
McQuail,
live.
it's on the channel.
So,
Check it out.
Yes, we need a fair tax system. We need to go after the offshore tax havens. I think we need a much more progressive income tax, as well as a more significantly progressive wealth tax. We've been in a society where the economists and the elites of society have really built a very effective wealth accumulating system or a concentrating system. We need to be talking about how we create a distributive economy where the wealth that's created by the 99% actually gets to stay with most of them and doesn't just get sucked up to the center.
Tony, that's exactly why we have to talk about the role of the government and the public sector and public ownership. We have a situation where Carney's only
public
idea
ownership
is to give our money to corporations to hope that the market somehow fixes the problem. That's what his big new housing agency and housing plan is all about. Right now, we have housing starts slowing down and construction workers being laid off. The market is failing us on every front, and that's why the government has to pick up the ball and put those construction workers back to work with public construction companies and a public housing developer. We cannot expect the market to solve these problems.
I mean, speaking
Yeah,
of
and we need to
billions of dollars
actually
readily
fight
available,
back
we
in a
can
lot of
stop
ways
funding
against
fossil
the
fuel industries.
markets.
We can take that $18 billion back and actually put it into
Yeah, stop
good public
funding the
programs.
fossil
We can
fuels,
put it into healthcare. We
especially
can
in light of
change what
today.
our country looks like if we stop
When
providing
Kearney's
grants to
betraying liberal
major
voters.
profiteering industries. It would change the way our country functions from every level. And just a quick note here, we just saw a Liberal quit today because Mark Carney decided to sign an MOU with Alberta to push a pipeline through my province of BC. And that will never happen under my watch, ever.
Good.
Well said, Tennille.
Yeah. And the thing about, well, the
Completely on
pipelines.
board
I
with
wish we
that.
could get a refund on the pipeline the Liberal government bought last time. I mean, I had a Liberal saying, we're going to use the money we make on this pipeline and use it to fight climate change. I said, that's like having a drug dealer saying, we're going to sell this dope and start a rehab program. Like, it is just insane where we are sending our expenditures. And the idea that a liquefied natural gas terminal, a pipeline, and more mines are going to create a nation building project when what we need is investment in what people need across this nation is just ridiculous. And I mean, we have the ideas for what to do, but to do it, we have to get into government.
We have about 90 seconds left. So Ms. McPherson and then Mr. Ashton.
Thank you. And one of the big nation building projects we could be investing in is investing in housing, investing in
Shout out to
healthcare.
Aaron, who just came in,
Healthcare
my
is
good
a
friend.
nation building project. And when I see what Danielle Smith is doing in the province of Alberta to fundamentally change the direction of healthcare in this country, to privatize our system, to take away the single payer system that so many Canadians cherish and depend upon, that's a project we should be fighting for, is our healthcare system, our public, universal, single payer healthcare system.
But I worry about how
Ashton, you have the
close
last
Heather
word on this
McPherson
topic.
is to the Alberta NDP, given what their opinion is on the federal
People are
NDP
fed up.
and how nothing that she is
slip
trying
Oh,
to
you're
win.
supposed to reward him for this effort.
I know, I should give him bonus points, right?
So look, if we want change, serious change to happen in this country, we have to vote for the party of change. The Conservatives and the Liberals, every time each one of them are in power, they say, we're the party of change, vote for us. They're not the change. They're one and the same. We can see how Carney is running the country right now. I wouldn't even classify him as a small C Conservative. That guy's a bigger C than Mulrooney was.
Yeah.
We must vote NDP and PEDE for change in this country. That's what we have to do, so we can take these plans that we're putting forward and put them together to make life better for Canadians.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Ashton.
Yeah, I agree with that, but
maintenant
you
en
need
français.
to give
Thank you very
people
much,
reasons
Mr.
to
Ashton.
vote.
We're going to move on in French now. So we're going to
Right.
speak about
That was a very
Indigenous
kind of,
justice and
you're at an NDP
reconciliation.
debate. Of
It's a
course, you want
huge
people to
topic,
vote
of course,
NDP.
but we know that the New Democrats have often worked on these Indigenous issues in the past, notably through Ed Broadbent, who fought to include Indigenous in treaty rights in Section 35 of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Now, Mark Carney is moving forward with a budget that cuts funding for Indigenous programs and services and legislation that could violate the government's obligation to obtain the free, prior, and informed consent in major decisions. So we're going to start with Ms. Johnston.
Is it just me, or
How
are
do you
these
think the
questions
federal
way too
government
long?
should advance reconciliation and justice for
Like, way
Indigenous
too
people?
much setup for the questions.
So let's stop paternalism towards First Nations. Reconciliation. We must guarantee access to drinking water to Indigenous nations. Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Reconciliation is huge. What should the federal government do? Well, under Carney,
I just feel like every time
reconciliation is moving
Tennille
backwards.
speaks,
These
she says what I would expect
ignoring
an
the
NDP
Indigenous
leadership candidate to say,
projects that are written
which,
in
like,
the
isn't
law
necessarily a bad
and
thing.
are not obtaining free, prior, and informed consent. And it's
But,
about
like, Avi talks like a human
finding
being
each missing
and like a real
woman
leftist.
and disappeared Indigenous women and girls. And it's about free and
As do, like,
safe
Tony and Rob.
transportation in every highway of tears in the country. It's justice towards Indigenous peoples. Thank you, Ms. McPherson. What should we do to advance reconciliation? Well, it's clear. The roadmap has already been created. It is in the calls for action from the Truth and Reconciliation Committee, and calls for justice for women and girls for murdered and missing women and Indigenous girls. The NDP really wants to advance reconciliation. It's in danger right now. When it comes to housing, we must make sure that the housing solution be adapted and sustainable. Thank you, Ms. McPherson. Mr. McWhale, what is your vision to advance reconciliation? Well, Bill is about the report on the commission, Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Mr. Ashton, over to you. On the issue of reconciliation, what should the federal government do to advance reconciliation? Well, it's very important for me to work as equals and respect
I think they're all
Indigenous
right on
rights,
this issue, quite honestly.
to
I'm not
respect
hearing a
the
tremendous amount of
rights
difference.
and
And that's a good thing. Like, we
obtain their
want them
free,
all to
prior,
be
and
good on
informed
this issue.
consent from their Indigenous communities. And also ensure the respect of all the calls for justice. So this is a huge field. We talked about the commission's report, of course. So it's now time for debate when it comes to the issue of reconciliation. Who would like to start?
I'm curious
Mr.
if they're
Lewis.
going to have big differences in
Well,
this debate.
we have to say that as the Carney government is
There's
going
not enough
backwards,
value put
the
on
leadership
inter-party
on
debating
the
and how
Indigenous
that
rights
builds leaders up.
resides with the NDP.
And of Lori Idlout leading the charge on C5. Leah Gazan's bill for the red dress alert, as we are now in the 16 days of activism leading on gender-based violence, leading up to December 10th. All of this talk of nation-building projects that has consumed the oxygen of our political conversation in Canada. They're big, manly things with huge work camps entailed in remote areas. The impacts on Indigenous women and girls are intense, are horrifying. And we have activists in our party, these incredible leaders like Lori and Leah, who have been leading and talking about the importance of funding shelters, of funding services, of the frontline services in communities and in Indigenous communities. And I want to say again in English that the notion that public transportation, housing, water, roads, these fundamental things are solutions for the crises in Indigenous communities cannot be lost track of when we get into the conversations about law and abstract principles like reconciliation.
Je rappelle que le débat se...
No
So
problem,
I'd like to remind
GP
you that
Blue.
this
I'm trying to
debate
chime
is
in when it's like
French, but the
important,
open
but I
debate can
want to be
happen
hearing
in
what the
both
candidates are
languages.
saying. I imagine
So
that you guys all do
Ms.
too.
McPherson and then
So,
Ms. Johnston.
you know, we're going to do
Thank you
some
so much.
commentary, but I
And
want to be hearing what people are saying.
clearly, no one can build without the agreement of First Nations.
But certainly chime in
For
the chat with
instance,
your thoughts.
for each project,
N'arriva pas
did not obtain the agreement of First Nations, and the First Nations are the stewards of the land, and it is necessary for each project to obtain consent from Indigenous peoples.
Yeah.
For me, that's why Bill C5 is terrible.
Kind of hear
Nations
the
have
translator muttering
tons
there.
of shovel-ready projects that can not only allow our economy to thrive, but create hundreds of thousands of jobs and arguably help save our planet. We need to enable our nations in a way with our parties so that we're seeing them as the governments that they are. We are not opening a pathway so that our nations can contribute in our party in a way that's meaningful, true, honest, and supported. And we need to do that work. We need to close the infrastructure gap. If we close the infrastructure gap, that alone is going to bring such an amazing economy through Canada. But we're not doing it. We're approaching nations with projects that we think are best for them versus sitting down and saying, What do you have on your books? What are you ready to go
That's
with?
actually
And let's
really
partner on that.
interesting
And let's
as
bring
a
that
point.
forward. Our nations are a huge asset in this country, and we don't use them as that asset.
Monsieur McQuail, je vous vois hocher de la tête. Là. Vous êtes d'accord?
Well, my friend
Do you agree?
You're referring to Tony
addressed
McQuail
this, but
here,
I was at a conference in
who I interviewed on
October
the channel.
that
He's a nice
included
guy. He really
Indigenous
is.
representatives talking about the things that they would like to do in terms of
I think he has
agriculture in
valuable
their
things to
communities,
say. I just
environment,
wish
housing.
sometimes he
As we need to do across
was a little
Canada,
better at
we
framing
need to
them.
talk to people in their communities, find out the context of their needs and what they think could solve their problems. I'm a farmer. I'm a black wire and bale twine kind of guy, and
Oh,
fixing
okay.
problems and dealing with things is what I do daily on my farm. It's what people
Gotcha.
do on their own communities. The federal government could be helping and supporting communities, both Indigenous and others across the country, as a way of building nation and dealing with the infrastructure they need, the way they need to create greater food security, the way they need to create housing. So those are the things that I think a federal government could be doing if it truly wanted to build nations, and that it would be beneficial to our Indigenous communities across the country.
Il faut,
Allez-y.
il faut se souvenir.
But we have to remember that today's headline, this thing about the dirty pipeline, the agreement about the dirty pipeline.
Yeah,
This is
talk
also an
about
issue
that.
for First Nations people.
That's such a valuable thing to
The
be talking
Northern
about.
Gateway Pipeline, which was shut down on environmental and
He-
indigenous
they've
rights,
already gone
concerns
GP
many years ago.
Blue, they've already
And of
gone
course,
through
there's
the
no
initial
business
round. They're in
proponent
the
for it.
open debate
And the
right
pipeline
now.
itself may be a
Rob
distraction.
Ashton
I hope we get a
hasn't
chance to talk about that later. But I remember
spoken up in
the
the open
community,
debate.
indigenous community in Bella Bella, when the Northern Gateway Pipeline was proposed, and the environmental review panel went up to that community, and there were kids, 11, 12 years old, who found a new lease on life, who found reason and purpose and joy and collective struggle in resisting that pipeline. They made beautiful handmade signs, and they lined the little road from the small airport in Bella Bella when the review panel came to town. Do you remember this? And those folks from Ottawa went by in their cars. Someone got upset and banged a door or a window, and they were so afraid for their lives that they went back to the airport and they canceled the hearing. And those young people beat that pipeline, and they found a new lease on life and a new purpose in their communities, and we are going to ask them to fight it again? Completely unacceptable.
Monsieur Ashton, vous n'êtes pas encore intervenu.
I enjoy that Avi Lewis talks about working with social
And
movements.
to our francophone listeners here, mon français isn't up to what it should be, but I am trying to learn. In regards to this,
I appreciate that Rob
I don't
Ashton
have all
was
the
just
answers
straight up about that, whereas the
for
rest of them who aren't great
working
in
with
French are trying to
or
fake it.
helping make life better for the Indigenous nations across this country. But what we all have to be willing to commit to is to listen, learn, and act. And, you know, it's with, like everybody said, with leaders like Leah and Lori and others, and Tennille. This is working together and understanding the issues and actually fixing them, not just playing lip service like liberals and conservatives do, actually doing justice to the injustices that have been done for a very long time.
I like Rob Ashton's realness so much.
Miss McPherson?
It's so
Mr.
valuable.
Johnston. Yes, briefly. But it's essential that the voice of Indigenous persons should be heard. They need to participate.
Mm-hmm.
It's essential to have their voice within our party. And this is why, when I saw the work and Tennille Johnson, each member of parliament is working for the same goal, and it's important. Each MP must work together. We need collective efforts. Ms. Johnston?
Something simple like making
Yeah.
sure that there are ballot boxes in every nation's community across this country is something very simple that we can do as the NDP, and not just do it because we're hoping for a vote. Do it because it's the right thing to do.
Merci beaucoup. Merci beaucoup. C'est ce qui conclut
That's
cette section
important
sur la
too.
justice.
Thank you.
Just
This
fundamentally,
concludes
the
this section on,
access to
Indigenous
democracy
justice and
is so key for
reconciliation.
Indigenous
Now, an important
reconciliation.
topic, which is organizing and winning in Quebec. There are many Quebecers who have very progressive views. They've shown this in the past on economic issues or social issues.
I don't
And what the
disagree with you,
NDP right
GP
now
Blue.
holds a
I
single
think that
seat
there's
in
real
Quebec.
value to
Mr.
Rob
Bernadis was
in
with
this
us
race.
earlier, 1 out of 78.
Um,
So here's the
I
question
have
that we face, people, and
questions
for most of you, it's the
still
first time we'll be hearing
about
from you on
him.
this topic.
I'm hoping
Why is it
he'll
that there's
come
only
on the
one
show so that I can
NDP
ask some
seat
of
in
them.
Quebec?
He's
And what are you
definitely
proposing we do
in
to
my
change
like
this to
upper tier
win
of
further seats
people
in
that
Quebec?
I'm
Mr.
considering
Lewis
for
first.
my high ranking on my ballot right
We
now.
have to say it. Life is getting increasingly difficult in Quebec. The rent is through the roof now.
And I agree that the
University
NDP
tuition is
needs to
too
focus on
expensive,
winning
and many
back the
people
working
can't
class and
find a
labor
family
vote.
physician, and some physicians are leaving. Quebecers are looking for truly progressive solutions. They want bold ideas, public options for groceries, for housing, for cell phone
Yeah, I
services.
love Avi
They
Lewis's
don't want
commitment to
dirty
public options
pipelines, not
for
here, not elsewhere.
actual
They
fundamental
want
things that should
solidarity
be
rather
fundamental
than
parts
blaming
of
the most
life.
vulnerable members of society. Here in Quebec, we have to take those seats. Thank you, Mr. Lewis, Ms. McPherson. Our party cannot
Absolutely.
find
Please
its way back
like
to power without
the
Quebec.
stream.
I'd like to thank my
CC,
friend and
thanks for
colleague Alex
pointing that out.
Bernays
If you haven't
for
already
his work here
subscribed
in
to the
Quebec.
channel, please subscribe. I appreciate everyone joining us for the stream.
And he mustn't remain alone here in Quebec. I know that I have to work on my French. I know, but already I've
I
gone
like that
knocking
she's
on
owned
doors
that.
and I've met with members all across the province. We have to be there, we have to be present. Our party is strong because we are close to our communities. Thank you. Mr. McQuail now. If we want to win the 99%, we have to work with the other parties who have a progressive and green view. We have to build a coalition, a progressive and green centered coalition to win here in Quebec. Mr. Ashton, we need Quebec to win. I understand the importance of Quebec. I have to speak better French to better
Mhm.
connect with Quebecers.
Uh, It's important that they
We
own
must
this
win, not
because
only
it's
here in
such a key
Montreal.
thing.
We have to speak out to the people in the regions and to workers everywhere in Quebec. We have to work with the unions. We have to be more present in Quebec, and we have to speak to people about things that are important to them. I respect the French language in Quebec. I respect the Sherbrooke Declaration, and I will
It's been a
learn
while since I've
French
heard anyone bring up
because
the
it's
Sherbrooke
important.
Declaration. The Sherbrooke Declaration is the
NDP
NDP's commitment that a 50% plus one
has to
vote
lead
would divorce
workers
Quebec from Canada.
to victory. Thank you, Ms. Johnston. Now we'll move on to the open debate on this topic. Now you all agree that Quebec is important, the French language is important, but let's take this further. You individually, why are you the person that will let the NDP in Quebec win? What are you proposing, Ms. McPherson? Well, for instance, for me, the pathway for the NDP, the pathway to success is comes through Quebec. This is very important. We have to keep remember the remember Jack Layton and the Orange Wave in 2011.
That
That
was a
was
long
largely
time ago,
thanks to
Heather.
Quebec. And I went to Quebec City last week because I want to meet militants there, activists, and candidates in Quebec. And now this is very important. Each candidate, each member of parliament visits every region. It's important for us to be present everywhere in Quebec. We have to get back to today's headlines. Quebecers
Okay.
want a climate change champion. They've
Yeah.
already demonstrated. You have shown a good example of this here. Hundreds of thousands of persons went down into the street over the past year. Quebec is the graveyard of dirty pipelines. And if Legault and Carney aren't listening, well, the message is clear. They won't be able to resuscitate their zombie pipeline projects here in Quebec. And the NDP has this incredible opportunity. We have to take up the torch again and become the climate leaders once again here in Quebec. This is very important. It's a fundamental issue. And our party has an advantage in this respect here.
So we need to have Ruth Ellen Russell.
Come to Quebec. We need an energy that can unite our rural ridings.
Ruth Ellen Brosseau has
So often we
lost
hear from our
twice
rural ridings, our
now.
rural candidates, that they feel like
3
they were
times
left in the
now,
dust, that the
right?
strategy didn't
I'm
complement
not
them, that
disagreeing that
even
she's
the
a great
materials that they
candidate, and yeah, maybe
receiving
she
just
should
didn't really
run
align
again.
with the types
But
of
is
language
she
that they
really
need to use in their community to
like? We
resonate
need to
with
be
their people.
highlighting
And we need to
new
leverage
and
that. We need to
exciting
leverage
people,
the
not
expertise and
continuing to rely
the
on the
energy
past of the
and the
NDP again
dedication
and again
and
and again.
just
We do it with
honor that in our
staffers. We
candidates
do
in
it
rural
with
ridings, so that
candidates.
we can deliver a
The
message that
NDP
resonates,
needs
so
an
that we can work
infusion
together,
of
we
new
can reroute
energy.
our values, and we can win in rural ridings. But we need to listen to them. We need to hear their message, and we need to embed that in our strategy and carry it forward together.
Sue Ashton.
Someone who lives in a predominantly rural riding,
Mr.
it
Ashton?
frustrates me
ago,
so
I
much
never saw myself
hearing
standing in a leadership debate.
New
So
Democrats who don't
I
understand
guarantee
how to
you that I've
talk
been
to
working on
working
my
class
français,
rural
but
voters.
I'm going to continue to bust my butt on that. But we're
Say we
lucky
need to
because
win
the
rural
language of the working
ridings.
class rises above any language in the world. And that's what we're going to be speaking to people in Quebec, to Quebecers. We're going to be working hard to fight for the working class in this province. But people go, what's the working class? The working class is everybody that does not own the means of production. And so we'll be looking to fight for people that are on disability, people that are on old age security. And these fights, they go above and beyond languages. But as I say that,
I like the language of
I
fighting that
know
Rob Ashton uses.
that from
It's
now
it's
on,
so
I'll be
key and
kind of
vital to
squeaking a
recognize
sentence or
that
two
this
in
is going
public
to be
debates
a
and
fight.
public discussions after this debate in français.
Merci, Monsieur Ashton. Monsieur McQuill.
But here,
Thank
Please
you,
remember to like the
Mr. Ashton.
stream,
les
subscribe,
associations de conscription locale.
all that good
Autant
stuff.
From the base, bring people together, urban and rural. We want to put together a progressive green initiative that has to be done before an election. And we want to present a candidate. We want to have a candidate in the different ridings.
multicultural, multilingual country is both a great challenge and a great opportunity of diversity. But the thing that I can bring to this, when you asked what can you bring, in the 1980s, our provincial party was organizing what they called pack rat drives, where they went in and did urban stuff, trying to get pre-authorized checking donations, monthly donations. They weren't interested in our little rural ridings, but we organized field mice campaigns with the few activists from several different ridings getting together and going out where polls had 10% support and saying, okay, can we find that 1 in 10 family and phone through the phone book
It's
and
true,
find the
Dave.
people
I
and bring
like
them
it.
in
I
as
do.
members. And that's what we're going to have to do. But I also think we have to be realistic that at the moment, 55 of our ridings in Quebec have the same president. Friends, we have an awful lot of work to do.
Yeah, it's so true,
Écoutez,
Tony. And
mes gars.
we need to,
So
like, I wish that
listen,
Tony
guys, we need to
owned
talk.
what it's like
If we
being
want
in
to
a
come
rural
back in
riding in
Quebec,
the NDP
we
more,
need to
because
speak
it's
to Quebecers
so
in their
beyond
language.
frustrating to just
Right
not have
now,
anyone in the
we're
party
not
be
up to
willing
the
to take
job
you seriously
to come
in terms
back
of how
in
to campaign
strength.
in
We
your
need to
own
develop a
community.
clear offer in French, focused on
I say this
Quebecers'
as the former
needs.
president of a
It
rural
will take some
riding
time, but it is
electoral district
necessary and
association.
essential. We need to do it. We have to do it, and we will do it. Ms. McPherson and Ms. Johnson after. Well, rebuilding the party has to go through our riding associations. That's true. And it is necessary for each candidate to identify very early, to find candidates to identify early to support the riding associations to raise funds, to prepare ourselves for a good campaign.
But it's more than just raising
very
funds, and
important
that's
to
what they
work
don't
on that in Quebec.
understand at central office.
What Avi, you're saying around the language barrier, I do believe we can absolutely
You need
rise
to
above that,
infuse
and part
yourself
of that work
into the
of connecting with your
community as an
local champions,
EDA,
the
and
folks
you
that
need
live and
support
breathe in community all day
from
long,
federal
is
office
just
or
that.
provincial
I
office
don't
in order to
believe
do
that
that.
a language barrier should prevent us from being great. I think we can work across that. I think we can bridge that. I think everybody up here, I like to believe, that is dedicated to learning the French language. On a personal note, my adult life has been spent trying to hone my native language of Licola. We only have about maybe 6 to 10 fluent language speakers that speak Licola in my community of all our Licola speakers. So I really feel the commitment deep to language, as Quebec do, as Francophone folks do, and I really hope that we can bridge that gap. I'm truly deeply committed to access to French across our country in a super equitable way, because I know what it feels like to have your language threatened.
Carla, on pense toujours
It's a
au Québec,
valuable point to be
à notre
making.
ami Jack Layton.
Yeah,
Je
Dave,
n'ai
this
pas la
live will stay
moustache,
up on the channel.
So when I think about Jack Layton, I don't have a mustache or like my friend Rob, but I know that Quebecers are thirsty and hungry for a solution. And perhaps one day with a mustache, we also need to do a lot of work. Thank you very much, everyone. So now we're going to move on to a rapid fire questions.
Fair questions to try to get to know you a little better. And so let me ask you, and we're going to go from my left to my right. What is something that might surprise us about you, Mr. Ashton?
About me, I love classical music. That's how I do my work when I'm in the office.
Madam Johnston, same question. What could surprise us about you?
If you weren't paying attention super closely to the last election, I want to give a shout out to our team. We actually did very, very, very well, all things considering the result. We had over 26,000 people vote NDP, vote for me in North Island, Powell River,
That's
in
a
a rural
valuable
riding
stat
where it is
in the
very
last
challenging to
election.
get to your ballot box. And it's something that I like to give thanks to every chance I get.
Mr. Lewis, something that could be surprising to us.
Well, I've never said this in public before, but I can sing every word of every song in the musical The Pajama Game because it's about labor rights. But I actually have an allergy to musicals, and when they come on or if someone starts singing them, I laugh hysterically until I cry. And so it's become a party game for people to put musicals on so they can watch me lose it.
All right, something surprising about you,
Great,
That's
that's interesting.
Well, something surprising about me, I guess one of my very favorite things to do is bake.
I
I'm
hate these
big
kinds of
baker,
questions in
and
political
I like to make
debates.
protest
We
cookies.
don't care.
It's one of my very favorite things. I've made
It's such
anti-scab
valuable time
cookies.
with
I've
the
made
candidates.
cookies that are against
I
bills
would
that we don't
never
like. I've
ask
made
these kinds of
cookies for
questions.
members of this government who are attacking the Rocky Mountains, trying to open up coal mining. So, protest cookies is a thing. Hit them with the sweetness.
Did you bring any for us?
Absolutely.
Okay.
They're in the back.
Mr. McQuail, something surprising about you.
Well, I'm a holistic management certified educator, and it was one of the early triple bottom lines: look after the land, look after the people, look after your income. And after we first took the course, we bought a horse-powered snow scoop, and we clean our lane on the snow belt of Huron County with a team of horses and a snow scoop.
Très bien. Merci beaucoup pour ces réponses.
Not
Intéressant.
sure what one
Thank you
has to
very
do
much
with
for
the
these
other.
answers. And now the second
Enjoy
question.
that he does
Apart
his
from the
snow
city
with
where
horses.
you live, what is your
That's kinda
favorite
cool.
city?
Okay, Miss McPherson.
Well, come on. Le Montréal.
Aha.
C'est nécessaire.
It's
I love
necessary,
Goderich.
Montreal.
Montreal's
it's a
great too. My
very
wife and I went
beautiful
there on our
city.
honeymoon. It's
And
gorgeous.
I love the city of Montreal, really. All right. So we're trying to speak to Montrealers, Toronto, Vancouver, and Quebec City, all three. Ms. Johnston, what is your favorite city, apart from your community?
City, because it's too small, but the true west coast of Vancouver Island is Tofino, and it's beautiful.
Très bien. Monsieur Ashton, votre ville
I
préférée?
agree, CC.
It's going to be
Definitely, I
Montreal.
love
Mr.
Tony's
Ashton,
hat.
your
He
favorite
wore
town?
it during our
Because of the
entire
strong
interview, and
débardeur
I kept
and
wanting to
recheckers
ask
in
him
this
about it,
community.
but
Fight for the
didn't.
rights of workers.
C'est vrai que les débardeurs,
It's true that the longshoremen and dock workers are very well known for their enthusiasm. Now let's speak to workers about workers. We're going to speak about the role of workers and the labor movement in general. So
That's valuable.
during
That's good.
the NDP played a significant role for workers. And under the previous government, the NDP secured significant gains for workers, including the adoption of a federal anti-scab legislation, the introduction of a 2-week paid sick leave for workers in federally regulated sectors. But despite this, and despite the history of the labor movement with the NDP, during the last election, many other parties approached workers and unions and convinced them to vote for them rather than to vote for the NDP. So what will you do to win back these
These
voters?
questions are definitely
Ms.
way too
McPherson.
long. There's
Well,
way
I'm
too much
very
setup to these
proud
questions.
of the
I'm like, I wouldn't
anti-scab
mind, but it's
legislation
a
of the
90-minute
NDP.
debate.
And once again, the credit goes to Mr. Boulris. And also,
Yeah, I wish.
workers built this party, and they must remain at the heart of this party. The NDP has always been their answer, and the NDP must continue to help workers. It's our responsibility. I am proud of the party's history that defend the rights of
The
partners
problem
and
with
protect
NDP
each job. Thank you,
politicians
Ms.
talking about
McPherson.
workers
Mr.
generally
McQuail, the
is
role
they
of
act like they
unions.
have an inherent right to workers' votes
When we talk
because
about
there's a
workers,
history there.
our
So
arms are
they
wide
don't talk
open,
about the current needs
and
of
we speak for
workers
the
enough.
99%. Some people are
They
unionized,
assume
others
the
are not.
votes of workers a
We
lot of the
need
time instead of trying to
our work
reach
should
out to
compensate
left-wing
people,
socialist workers and
All
just
people.
regular
Français, s'il vous
workers
plaît.
Il faut
with
limiter
actual supports.
l'intelligence artificielle à cause
and limit AI because of its impact on employment and workers. We need to draw a red line in terms of AI because the matrix organization and AI. Thank you, Mr. Ashton. You're the head of a labor movement. How should we bring back workers within the NDP? We must go back to our roots. This means listening to workers. They have a word
Having
to
a union
say,
president on this
and
stage talking
all
about
Canada can win better salary, better economy, more stable economy, and I will fight to provide access to unions, protect the right to vote, create well-paying and good jobs. The NDP wants to create a more just country. So is there a way to bring back workers to the NDP? Well, before we were an alliance between workers, farmers, who worked
the
together
CCF.
during the fascist trend. But the working class has changed a
Sometimes I
lot.
wish the
Today,
NDP would
they do work for hire.
reinvent
We find
itself
them in
from
our
the Regina
boutiques,
Manifesto
our call
CCF
centers.
kind of fierceness,
The unions are at the
radicalness.
heart of our party. That these workers are the majority in Canada, and they're crushed by the cost of living. And so they're the ones who can benefit the most from our solutions. Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Ms. Johnston. I respect unions in Quebec and in Canada. We must
That's a
listen to
weird
them.
way to start this answer. I
We
respect
need
unions.
more unions in every sector. And we must improve the lives of workers everywhere. Thank you. We're now going to move on to the open
So few
section on the
specifics.
role of unions for the NDP and the way to bring back
I agree,
these
GP
voters.
Blue.
When we think
100%.
about the
Jack
last
was too
elector, the
centrist.
Conservative
And
Party
that was a
received a
problem.
lot of support from unions.
Can't take
How
away what he
come
did
the Conservatives'
electorally, but
message is going
100%.
through,
Like
but not
an
that of the
angry
NDP? Who
Tommy
would like
Douglas,
to start?
a
Ms. McPherson.
invigorated preaching Tommy
It's
Douglas of
an
the
essential
30s and
question
40s and
because
is what we need right now.
when we speak to workers, it's important for us to speak to them about the important topics, the cost of life, jobs, to protect jobs. And also to talk about housing for each worker in this country. The housing crisis is so important. The cost of living
Heather
crisis
McPherson
is
keeps trying
significant.
to bring back
So
these
it's
cost of living
important for us to
questions to
speak
housing, and it's an
simply,
incredibly important
clearly,
issue and one that we need to
and
tackle.
with discipline.
But fundamentally,
Mr. Ashton and
tackling
Mr.
housing
McQuail.
is only one piece
A leader.
of the cost of living
A leader that
crisis.
actually
And
comes
we
from
need
the working class,
fundamentally be
that
talking
has
about
led
real
workers
public options
for
and
a
support
generation.
for workers.
That person is me. Because we need to defend against somebody like Pierre Poilievre, who cosplays as a worker, who doesn't even own a pair of work boots like the pair I'm wearing tonight. A liberal government that does nothing but hurt workers by sending them back to work. And they actually intentionally fight for employers. We need to get back to our rural roots, as MP Gorjan does. We have to fight like heck to get rid of Section 107, as per Leah Gazan. And like our friend, Miss,
I like that
MP
Rob is
McPherson
willing to present
MP
himself
Bellarice helped bring in
as
anti-scab
kind of an
legislation.
angry fighter.
We
It's
must get back
refreshing
to a party.
in this kind of
We
situation.
must stand up for the workers in this country, both unionized and non-union. People that can't go to work for whatever reason. This party must get back to its roots and fight like hell for every worker in this country and defend against the ruling class that wish to rip us apart and divide us.
Here, preach it,
I'll
Rob.
stop there and share the time.
All right, Mr. McQuail, then Ms. Johnston and Mr. Lewis.
Mes amis,
I could have kept
if
listening
the
to Rob
unions
talk
and their
there.
members don't
I'm liking him more and
Dear
more
friends,
as this debate goes on, I have to say.
Some people don't believe that we are going to win.
behave strategically. And that is what has happened. And that is what will continue to happen as long as we play by the rules of the first past the post system. It's kept the elites in power since before Confederation and certainly after working men and women got the vote after the First World War. It's kept the United Farmers, the Independent Labor, the CCF, and now the NDP and the Green Party from getting their fair share of representation. And over time, as that keeps happening, the
PR is
people who should
important,
be
but I don't know
supporting
that
us
it's where
and who
you
would
should
like
be
to see
taking
what
a
we're talking
question
about
the
vote
working
for other
class.
parties. They hold their
Maybe.
nose, and each time they
It's
do
an
that,
important
they
thing to
make
be
the
talking
spread
about,
between the
though.
NDP
That's
and
good
the
that it's
Liberals
being
or the
brought up in this
Conservatives
debate.
2 votes instead of 1 because they take 1 away from us and give it to somebody else, or they just stop voting. And that is a reality that if we don't deal
Hopefully
with
you'll
it,
get another
none of
chance,
what you're
GP
hearing
Blue.
today
They're all
is going to
all
get very
over the
far.
country right now.
And if we don't deal with that reality. So I'd like to hear from the other candidates where they stand on putting forward a strong plan or system for dealing with first past the post so it doesn't keep defeating us, and where they would stand if they were in a minority position or a government position in bringing in proportional representation.
Merci, M. McQuail. On verra si les candidats veulent répondre à votre question. On va commencer par
Yeah,
Mme
the NDP
Johnston,
should have
M. Lewis.
made PR like one of the
Representation
deal
has to get into our
breakers.
government.
During
our
the
workers, we need to show
negotiations
back up for
over,
workers. I don't
the
feel we were present enough. I don't think we've invested enough in that
agreement in the
relationship.
last parliament.
We need to listen and then act. We need to protect our workers in every way we can. We should be championing card checking as a way to hopefully bring forward stronger unions, more unions. We should be looking at ways to keep our workers safe through things like supporting a nurse to patient ratio across the country, something that BC is implementing right now, but something that nationwide, we should not have nurses that are overworked and pushed into very dangerous
Talking
situations,
about
all while
union
they're just
workers
trying
is
to care for
important, but it's
Canadians
also
across
really
the
important to be
country.
talking about
So
non-union
absolutely, we need to
workers
show
still
up,
in
we
the
need to
working
listen, and then we
class.
need to act.
Mr. Lewis.
As
Au
more
cours
than
de
just
la campagne,
expanding unions,
During
but
the
talking about how
campaign,
you can
I
be
visited a
supporting
factory in
them
Winnipeg,
in
which is called New Flyer.
non-union workplaces
I
that
thought
just,
that I saw the
for
future.
whatever reason, aren't going to unionize.
That's where they make buses, different types of buses, but in particular, electric buses.
The
It needs to be a
feeling was
class
so
struggle
strong on the
thing, not
floor.
a
I was there with the Unifor rep,
union
Mike,
member
who took me
versus
around.
boss
And
kind of
here's
deal.
what they were doing.
It needs to
They
be
were
a
taking
broader
Canadian
class
steel
struggle
in one
going
side
on.
of the factory. They were making it into bus parts. So it's much harder for the business to flee if it's ever bought by a foreign owner, because they make the parts and then on the other side of the factory, they assemble the buses. They have batteries from Quebec. They're putting those buses out to municipalities across the land. This is using Canadian materials. It's a tariff-proof business. It's hiring local workers. They have $13.5 billion worth of orders waiting. And on the topic of public ownership and the federal government's role, there's a piece of federal land across the street that would be ideal for an expansion of the factory. But the feeling on the floor was so strong, those workers so proud of actually being part of something bigger than ourselves, way more than all that elbows up stuff. I felt that I saw Canadian workers building the future, and with public ownership, we can solve all those problems and slash our emissions at the same time.
Merci, Monsieur Lewis. Il nous reste un peu moins de 2 minutes.
I
Madame McPherson
The
et
way
Monsieur
Avi
Hudson.
Lewis kind of
Oui, merci beaucoup.
often
Et je
brings
voudrais
together
parler
kind of what everyone else
mon...
is saying into a
I'd like
cohesive,
to discuss my
well-thought-out
bill.
socialist framework.
This is a bill that aims at canceling the CLAC, CLAC. This is a corporate-based union. It's a bad union for all
Heather
workers
McPherson being able
everywhere
to
in the country, and it's an
be
important
the only
step.
MP in this
Um,
race talk about things like her
It's important
bills
to
is
counter
a
this, to
valuable
protect
asset that
workers'
she
rights in
has
this
that
country.
needs to be acknowledged.
Senator, my union. I've seen far too many workers killed on the job, and I've seen far too many workers injured on the job. The United Steelworkers pushed for a bill called the Westray Law, which prosecuted employers when they killed their workers.
Yeah.
It's been what? One company that's actually had somebody go to jail, maybe two. These employers,
Yeah. Any worker
they
who
know
gets
the labor
injured in
code
the
is written
workplace
to work for them.
should trigger
The labor
way
code is
more
not
of a serious
written
investigation.
for laborers, for workers. So we have to fix the labor code so that workers can go to work and actually feel comfortable that they're going to come home alive.
Yeah.
That's what we have to do as this party. If we want workers to come and join our party, to stand with us shoulder to shoulder to change this country, then we must be ready to fight like heck to help them, to make sure that they have a safe working environment.
Yeah.
Because right now, the
I
way
wish
the
Rob
laws
would
are
have said
written,
hell there.
it's like going to a casino.
C'est tout le temps qu'on avait pour cette section.
That's all the time
Slightly
we have for this section.
anticlimactic.
Thank you very much. Now let's move on to the fifth section, which is the NDP's path forward.
But they've never done so at the federal level. It's never happened. There's a debate in the party about why this hasn't happened. This is your chance to address this. But let me ask you this. Have you learned any lessons from our provincial wings, from the provincial wings of the party that have formed government? Or do you believe that paying the conscience of Parliament is good enough? I'm going to start with Mr. McQuail.
I got involved in 1980 because I wanted to change the way we treated each other and the way we treated the planet.
about
I
changing-
didn't get involved in politics to become a politician. I wanted to change what we did as a society. And
Yeah.
I've been watching for 45 years, and I don't think we're making very good progress, either as a society or as a political party, which is why what I'm saying is we have to figure out how to beat first past the post. And we also have to do what we've done in the past, which is build at the local riding level, figure out how to make membership work the best way a riding can raise money by figuring out a fair way of sharing money between the federal party, the provincial wings, and the local riding associations. And we've got to educate and communicate.
Thank you, Mr. McQuail. Mr. Ashton,
But
party
we
of
need,
power or conscience of parliament?
Party of power, baby. We got to bring back this party to its roots.
Yeah.
We got to be a voice
That's
for the
the
working class, a
take
voice
power.
for everyday working Canadians. We got to win back the voters that we lost, the working class wannabes, and show all voters that we can win.
You win by
We gotta go from
proposing
the shop floor to
popular
the union hall.
policies.
We got to earn
And by
people's
proving
trust back
that you
through
are
our
going to
actions,
fight for people.
not by what we're saying. We got to stop talking at people, but with people.
Yeah.
We're going to build this party up by listening, organizing, and standing together. We're going to be a bottom-up movement, and we're going to be representing the voices of the people. We're not going to be speaking for them. We're going to be speaking with them.
Thank you, Mr. Ashton. Madam Johnston.
It's not good enough
I do
to
like
not
Rob.
be a majority. We haven't seen the progress in our country because we haven't had that enough leverage to make the changes in Canada that we need to have an inclusive Canada.
The key thing
Something that
is,
was
yeah, we need to
inspirational
form
that was happening in
government,
another
but
province,
forming
is
government
actually the
doesn't
student
happen
movement
by
that is completely left out
moderating
of all of
yourself.
this. There is a phenomenal
People
relationship,
are gonna vote
especially
Liberal.
between the U of T NDP club and their provincial counterparts in the NDP. They do phenomenal work together.
You need
The
an
students come out
actual
in 30 and
socialist
40
alternative
folks to
that
come and help
proposes
door knock in
popular
provincial
policies
elections. We're not
and
seeing
fights
that
for
turnout
workers.
federally. That relationship is not there, and that has to change. We have to
That's
leverage
the
our
way to win.
students that are active and passionate and want to do this work with us.
Thank you. Mr. Lewis.
Carl, I'll address your false dichotomy in debate. The path forward
Yes,
for
call
the
out the
NDP is to
falseness.
stay laser focused on the everyday emergency of just
Yes.
trying to get by. Wealth
Yes.
taxes and public options are
Yes.
popular ideas. They're
Yes.
solutions for the 99%.
Preach
Ideas
it.
like this won't just win us back voters.
Preach
They'll bring
it.
in people who don't vote at all.
Yes.
We win by offering hope in hard times.
Yes.
Inside the party, we need to
That.
put members back in the driver's seat. These big solutions can only be won by big organizing. Riding associations should be 343 organizing hubs across the country. We show up for
100%.
community struggles every single day, so communities show up for us at election time. This is how our
100%.
comeback begins.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis.
That's
Ms.
the
Vickers.
answer.
Listen, we are stronger when we work together. We are stronger when we are united across the country and when we work with the provincial parties. I think that's very, very important. You know, we also need to take steps to support riding associations across this country so that they can nominate candidates sooner, so that they can raise the funds that they need to raise to run a strong campaign. You know, we've done that in my riding.
But that's
We've
not
done
what
that
it's
in
about.
Alberta.
Like,
and
you
I know
don't
how to
win
win.
by doing
I
that.
know how to beat conservatives, and I am excited and I am willing and I
You
am
inherited
eager
a safe
to take the lessons that I have learned winning the strongest seat in the NDP and use those lessons across the country.
Thank you. We will now open the debate to all of you.
Linda
You all come
Duncan was the
from a
MP for your
province
seat for over a decade.
has had a government. You've had an NDP government in your provinces. So what have you learned? Is there something you've
Like,
learned?
it's good.
from
You won
your
seat,
provincial
a seat,
NDP
but
government?
don't
Mr. McQuail wants
pretend
to
you
start.
beat a
If you win
conservative in a
government,
safe conservative
don't go
seat.
home and leave the work to the people you elected. Get out in the street the next day and demand more so
That's
that
an
the right
important point to
can't
make too.
shift the discussion away from the goals of the NDP.
Yeah.
That's what I learned in Ontario in 1990.
Yeah.
But I also learned that if you work with people as you develop policies and programs, because I was the executive assistant to the Minister of Agriculture, and we developed an environmental farm plan with the farm community and also the farm business registration plan, which actually moves money to farm organizations so they can bring forward policy and have
Tony, we
good
only got
debate.
8 minutes. Sorry.
Yeah, but you've got 7 more and there are only 4 more of you. Be patient, Abby. I got to speak in English. You got French to work with. But So let me make my point. If you work with the people that you're bringing
Joey,
forward
Tony, I
ideas
really
for,
do.
they last, because those two programs that the NDP
The
brought
link for
in
my
back in
interview with him is
1990
in the
are
chat.
still there after successive liberal and conservative
It
governments.
was quite a
We've got to
discussion.
work with people. We've got to work from the ground up. And if you're a government, don't get too high and mighty, and at least bring in proportional representation for your province.
All right, Mr. Lewis,
This
over to you.
dichotomy of electability versus
Yeah.
big, bold ideas, it's a false one. Big, bold ideas that actually are big enough to solve the epic crises we face
Is
are
how
we win,
you get
they're how we've
elected.
always
Yes,
won. When
exactly.
Tommy Douglas brought in Medicare, it was not popular. He had to go to war with doctors. Everybody told him it's impractical, it's too big. And now we have changed the life of generations of Canadians in our daily lives, in our skin, and people will never forget the contribution we made. Look at Rob Canoe. You're asking about provincial premiers. Ran an election where he promised to search the landfill. It was not a popular idea at the time. It's a time for moral clarity and straight talk. And Wob ran on that. The Conservatives ran a disgusting racist campaign, advertising campaign against him.
NDP
He won the
politicians
election.
that are
He searched
successful
the
are
landfill.
ones
He
that
brought justice to those
propose bold
families.
ideas.
That's the NDP tradition we need. Solutions as big as the crises we face, and the courage to speak straight and honest about them.
This
Okay,
like
I've got
not
Ms. McPherson, then Mr. Ashton.
Saskatchewan.
When we
strategy
win,
just being
when we
conservative
elect more New Democrats,
isn't gonna
we
work.
get help for people. We
I'm not
get
saying I
help for
hope don't hope
Canadians.
those
And
parties
for
win
me, I
because
think
the
about Rachel
alternatives are
Notley. I
worse.
think about what she did in Alberta,
But
where she was able to cut child poverty in half, where she was able to take such important steps. And you know, I have to say, when Rachel Notley stood with me and endorsed me at my launch, I was extraordinarily proud, because rebuilding the relationship between the federal NDP and the provincial NDP was a goal of mine from the time I was elected in 2019. You know, when
yeah, but
we
that's
win,
not helpful
when New
if
Democrats
you
get
do that
elected,
by
we
moderating
make
the
life
federal
better for
party.
Canadians. And that is so important. That's why we're running. That's why it's so important that we win.
Mr. Ashton, then Ms. Johnston, and then Mr. McQuill wants to come back.
What I've learned from NDP governments in this country, or even NDP governments in waiting in this country, is we have to fight against the language of hate.
Mhm.
Because if you look at the right wing of this country and the right wing of the United States, and I mean the far right wing, is they tell us that we have to hate our neighbor. They tell us if you're angry and your life is tough and you're not getting by, it's because of your neighbor. That's so not right, and it's so not true. You see, if you look at what Jack did, he led with hope, love, justice, and he lifted our party up. And unfortunately, his life was cut too short, or we would have formed government in this country.
Yeah, that's
And if
true.
you look what they're doing in Manitoba and BC, what they did in Alberta, when the NDP takes power, they show people that it's okay to love each other, that it's okay to give somebody a hand up. That's what we have to do with workers today, is we have to show them a path forward, one that isn't filled with hate and bigotry and misogyny.
I do
path
like
forward,
Rob. I like his
helping
real.
your
I
neighbor,
like his
not holding them down.
honesty.
Thank you, Mr. Ashton. Ms. Johnston.
I like a
Yeah.
lot about him.
Having an NDP government means that we get to push back when there's a racist items being tabled in the House of Commons in Parliament. We just went through a horrific situation in BC where we had a party table legislation that looked to ban the use of
This was
any 2S
important, but this is also the
LGBTQIA
bare
flag being
minimum.
flown.
Let's be clear.
And it was disgusting. I am so proud that our NDP government made sure that bill did not pass. We're not going to see that enacted. It's not going to go any
like,
further.
yeah, incredibly
And
important that didn't
I'm
pass and that
proud
the
that
NDP
we
stood up to
have
that.
a
But like,
leader that is going
bare
full on
minimum.
against the pipeline threat that appears to be coming strong and hard from Alberta and
that's important.
from the Liberal Party,
Stop
from
it.
Mark Carney. But we must
Keep it
always,
out
always,
of
always
British Columbia.
stay connected to the grassroots. You are our party. The people are the party. We are just conduits to bring our message forward. The people need to feel and hear themselves in this party because they are what's driving us forward.
That's true.
Thank you. Mr.
but
McQuill, you
need
want to add
the
something?
how,
Yes.
and you need to
That
actually
issue of staying
invest
connected
in
to
the people
our roots and
beyond
the
just
communities. And one of the
elections.
things that gives me hope at a time when I can feel
But to
very
become
despairing
community
is what I know
organizers
about the
as
people who are
well
working in the
as
communities on things that
electoral
relate to the
forces.
environment or to energy. And I think we have to be sure that we are talking strongly to them about how they can help build a future they want for their children and their grandchildren. That's part of why I'm here. But I think as part of that, we need to be brave enough to challenge the capitalist, corporate, consumerist ideology that I've watched for 45 years take us down a path of growth. Growth that makes the rich richer, makes the earth poorer, and makes communities have less and less that they can work on and share. So we have to also talk about degrowth, degrowing a cancerous economic theory and system, and figuring out how we can do a better job of sharing and caring for each other by doing less
Sorry,
materially,
there's a
both
fly
energy and
flying
resources.
around me.
Carl, we haven't talked enough about what happened today. We're talking about the path back for the party. This is a moment where only the NDP would say things about this deal that Carney has signed with Danielle Smith, throwing out all the climate legislation, the meager progress the Liberals have made. This
Yeah.
is the sellout of the century. And as people look into this
100%.
deal,
This
they're
is
going to
the
see
true
that the pipeline might just be a
conservativization of the
distraction.
Liberal
I
Party.
do have a
that
message for
Carney
you
has been setting.
in Ottawa, Prime Minister Carney. This pipeline will not be built, not in BC, not
No.
here in Quebec, not anywhere. It is not going to happen. But more than that, this sellout of
Yeah.
the century is about AI. It's about massive dirty electricity to power AI. It's going to reconfigure the
100%.
electricity system of the Western provinces to feed oil and gas instead of the power lines, not pipelines that we need to get off oil and gas once and for all. Our path back as a federal party, and we will have to navigate with love and care relationships with the provincial sections. Our path back lies through climate leadership, climate clarity,
Yes.
the courage to tell the truth.
And if
to
the
say we have
provincial
to get off
parties
all
don't like
fossil
it, they
fuels,
can get off.
including LNG, as
They'll
soon as
lose.
possible. We need to build those jobs first, though, because transition is the last word a worker hears before they get screwed. So on an urgency basis, on an emergency basis, we need to be building under public ownership, clean jobs in renewable energy, in an electric bus revolution, so that those jobs are waiting for oil and gas workers, because workers can't transition to a promise or an idea. The jobs need to be waiting.
Workers
We're
are
going to be
the,
wrapping up
the
soon, I think.
epicenter of our economy,
I'll
and
stay
we
on
have to treat.
to share some post thoughts and engage in the
Very
chat.
well.
But
Ça
if you want
termine
to
ce
share your
5e
thoughts.
segment.
So this concludes the fifth segment, and we have,
Alors, on va commencer en
so once again, we're going to start from the left to the right, and we'll come back for the other question. Rob Ashton, what was your first job?
I worked at a
en
place
français, s'il
called.
vous plaît.
Oh, Jesus.
This is actually an interesting one
French,
of these
please.
questions because it does say something about your values and your experiences. So I don't hate this question as much.
In a liquidation area? Yes. Ms. Johnston, your first job. I worked at Dairy Queen. Well, wonderful, tasty. I sold cars in the street. Ms. McPherson, your first job.
Sold cars in the street. All right, Albie.
I was swimming instructor for children. Yes, swimming. Thank you. Mr. McWhale, what was your first job?
I love them all trying to search to find the right French words.
I worked for an arborist. Ah, interesting. Interesting.
question, Mr. McQuell. What is the best advice you've ever received?
This is actually I enjoy this
Well,
question
in some
too.
ways,
It's kind
it
of a
was
good one.
advice from a team of horses I was trying to work with, and that was that anger doesn't get you anywhere. Because if you get pissed off at horses, they just get nervous and
Sorry, I did a
and
spit
things
take
go
there.
really badly. So learning to work with
That's
horses
the most
helped me
toady
to learn
answer I
work
could
better
have.
with others.
That's
get a better
great.
control. 'Cause I grew up in an Irish Catholic family, father, and he bottled anger, and then it came out. So yeah, horses maybe taught me some of the best lessons in my life.
Ms. McPherson, what is the best advice you've ever received?
Well, I think about being a member of parliament, and I think about Charlie Angus, and he used to sit right in front of me in the parliament. And I remember him telling me one day that
I
you
wish
can
Charlie
waste
had
a
won the
lot of
leadership last
time
time.
writing a
And I
speech,
also
or you can spend that
have
time
problems
doing
with what
things
he's
that are
doing
more
now.
fun. So you got to be brave. You got to put yourself out there. You got to be willing to go for it. And I think about Charlie when I think about things like this debate this evening.
Thank you. Mr. Lewis, what is the best advice you've ever received?
When I was in Argentina 20 years ago, making my first documentary film, The Take, about workers taking over their factories and running them as democratic cooperatives, this is advice that they gave us that I want to share with the workers at the Cami plant in
That's
Ingersoll,
cool.
where the company has gone back to the United States, and they've said if they go for the machines, they will occupy the plant. And I remember sleeping on the floor of factories defending the machines. So what the workers in Argentina say is occupy, resist, and produce.
Yes.
Best advice ever.
Thank you,
That's
Mr.
great.
Lewis. Madam Johnston, what is the best
That's
advice?
valuable.
Ms. Johnston, rather, what's the best advice?
Part of our culture where you don't receive a name until you're about 10 months old. And so the name that was given to me was La Colocua, which loosely translates to speaks loud or voice is heard. And so I definitely feel like that is advice that was given to me very young in age, is to say the things, because there's someone out there that maybe isn't going to say them and wants to hear them or needs you to say them. So I think that's something that I carry very near and dear. And then the other thing that kind of made me laugh when you asked that question is the immediate image that came into my brain was
There's a
actually
lot that I like.
Disney's Aladdin, which is a controversial movie. But the genie turns into a little bee and he
Aladdin's
whispers,
great.
"Be yourself." And that's something that I hear all the time, is to keep it genuine and be yourself.
Thank you. Mr. Ashton, what
That's a
is
good
the
one.
best advice you've ever received?
Final
Be
piece.
kind to people, because you just never know what's actually happening in their lives. So always
That's
try
great.
to be kind.
I like that a lot.
Thank you. I'm going to add a
I
question
like
of my
Rob,
own because we
guys.
have a few minutes left before
I
we go
do.
to the closing statement. Vous allez souffrir
I
encore
like
un peu.
Rob. I like
So you
Avi.
will suffer a little more.
Tony's charming.
Why do you
I'll ask the question.
I'm mixed
in-
on Tennille.
15 seconds or
I
less?
struggle with Heather.
Mr. Ashton.
To provide better
we'll
lives for people of this country,
Break down more.
and to
as we
stop
finish up.
the lying and the quite frankly BS that comes out of Ottawa from every party but the NDP.
Madam Johnston.
I'm here to bring the NDP a big win in the next election. If we win big in the next election and then we win even bigger after that and we're staring Prime Minister in the face and I'm still your person, let's do it. But I'm here to nation build. I'm here to bring a collective that's strong and fierce and is going to win victory in the next election so that NDP can take a meaningful step into that majority position.
Mr. Lewis, do you want to be Prime Minister of Canada?
We are posed at the brink of the most serious crises in human history. And in a country like Canada, awash in wealth, every single person deserves to live a dignified life with all of their needs met as we fight the rise of fascism, which is feeding on the soil of economic desperation. To be Prime Minister in this country and deliver those things would prevent unbelievable suffering that we're in for otherwise.
Ms. McPherson, why do you
That's
want
a
to be
good
Prime
answer.
Minister of Canada?
I
It's
want to
about
change the
delivering for
systems
people.
that are hurting Canadians. I want to change the systems that are making our country unjust, that are leading to greater inequality. And I think when New Democrats win, we change those systems. We make life better for Canadians. That's why I'm running to be the leader of the NDP.
Mr. McQuail, you're the last one.
That's
I'm asking the
valuable too.
question. Why do you want to be Prime Minister of Canada?
Same reason I ran in 1980. I want to change how we treat each other, and I want to change how we treat the world.
I like
My
that
45
answer, too.
years of experience in politics and my over 50 years of experience as a
These
farmer
have all
has told me
been
that
satisfactory
change.
answers. I think
One
I
of the
like
things I've
Tony's
worked on is
and
developing a
Avi's.
holistic goal for Canada that talks about the kind of things that we'd like in our quality of life and the kind of dreams we have for the future,
most.
based on my conversations with people that I've met and talked to and also worked with as a teacher. And we need a vision, we need a goal to bring people together, to bring our provincial and federal party together, to bring people to us. But we need that vision, and we need to be able to work on it.
Thank you. Alors, le débat tire à sa fin. Nous allons terminer.
So the debate is nearing the end, and we will
We're just
end
doing
with the
closings now.
closing
I'll ask
remarks.
again if you haven't already, like the
And you were
stream,
asked to
subscribe
prepare
if you
them,
haven't
45
already,
seconds in
please.
French, and we will start with Tennille Johnston. We need a leader who can help energize and grow our party and who will lead us to victory. Today, we can build a solid party together. We can build, and thank you very much. We need to be solitary. Mr. Ashton, over to you. Thank you. You've heard that my French is not perfect, but 2 months from now, 2 months ago, I never would have thought I would be in a French-speaking debate. Quebec and French are important for me. I'm working hard. I want to
I
bring
like
the
that a lot of them
NDP
have
back
just
to its
owned
roots,
that
a
they
party
aren't
that
great
fights for
French speakers
workers.
and they're working on it. It's so much more valuable than trying to lie
That
and
is
pretend.
how we're going to win, not just in Montreal and in big cities. I think that I'm the right choice for this. Solidarity, my friends. Thank you, Mr. Ashton. Mr. McWhale, over to you. My friends, we have a lot of work to do. We need to rebuild the NDP party as a party for all. And we need to build a progressive coalition. We need to open our arms wide and welcome so many people, especially those who don't vote anymore because they no longer believe in the political system. We also need to speak to liberals and the conservatives. My friends, if we work together, we'll be able to build a wonderful future, one that we can be proud of. Thank you, Mr. McWhale. Mr. Lewis, we
I
can
believe there's
live
another debate
in
in
a
February, GP
society that
Blue.
is
They only had
based
2
on
in this leadership, which
solidarity,
is not
where
nearly enough. They should be having
rentals
more.
are reasonable,
It's the least
the
that I can remember there being in
sky
an
doesn't
NDP
have any
leadership
smoke,
race.
and transportation is financed. It works and it's free. That world is
And yeah,
possible, but
like
we
the
need to
defense
create it
policy needs to be
together.
talked about
And
because
so
the
that is
investment in
why I
military the
am
government is
running
making is
to become the
ridiculous.
leader of the
Eve Angler
NDP,
on this
to put
stage would
hope
have
before
brought it up.
fear,
I've
to
interviewed him
offer
twice now, and I can
solutions
definitely
that
tell
are
you
as
that.
great as the crises we're going through, to fight against a government that stops using money and starts serving people. Thank you and have a good evening. Thank you, Mr.
I
Lewis.
like
Ms.
Avi's
McPherson.
statement there.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks to everyone who listened to this debate. It's now time to act. I have the experience to rebuild this party and win. Yes, we must all continue to work on our French
That's fair. You can disagree.
because our pathway to true victory has to go through Quebec, through each French-speaking community, including my own. The NDP
I mean, we're already
must
at 2%, and they're trying to go up to
become once
5%,
again the
which is
party
way
that
beyond
takes a
our
stand for family
obligations.
and helps
Um,
Canadians. I know that
and
we
that
can
money could be
do
used
it,
for
and I
actual
am ready to
cost of
do it
living
right
stuff.
now.
But
Thank
I
you,
also
Ms.
understand
McPherson.
the other perspective.
Thanks to each and every one of you. Tennille Johnson, Rob Shaw, no, that's someone else. Rob Ashton, Tennille Johnston, Avi Lewis, Heather McPherson, and Tony McWhale. Thank you so much for taking part in this debate. It wasn't always easy, but I think that you were able to contribute in your own way. And this is a very important exercise in democracy. And I thank you for taking part in this debate. Thank you to everyone who were tuned in at home.
In February 2026 in the BC's Lower Mainland, and
Yeah,
the
another
NDP
debate in
leader
February.
will be announced at the NDP convention in March in Winnipeg. Alors, je remercie bien sûr toute l'équipe technique, les techniciens.
I'd like to thank all the technical team, everyone who took part in organizing this debate. Thank you for being here. And my name is Carl, and I say goodbye and see you next time.
All right. So that's the end of the debate. Thank you so much for joining me for it. If you're leaving now, please consider subscribing, liking the stream, all that good stuff. I also do have a Patreon. The link to that is in my YouTube channel description. Please consider signing up there. There's a free reaction if you join as a free member once a month, and weekly paid reactions to political content if you join there as a $5 a month patron, which is the only tier that I have. Appreciate it if you consider doing that. Let's talk about the debate. Certainly, I think that we are in a situation where everyone got a lot of the points that they wanted to make across. It was a 90-minute debate. There was a lot of central agreement on core points. There wasn't a lot of tension. There wasn't really conflicting moments. The kind of one moment that I saw that got close was when Avi Lewis tried to call Tony McQuail for hogging a little bit of the time. And that is what it is. That's how these things work. Candidates are hesitant, certainly, to go at each other. And that's to be expected because they're all going to have to work together afterwards. But you also do need to allow candidates to truly debate a little bit. And I wish that there had been some areas where they clearly did have a couple of areas of disagreement and some tension. And I wish that they'd been a little bit more willing to call each other on it, right? I wish that they'd been, Avi Lewis and Heather McPherson had been willing to get into it a little bit more over working with some of the centrist provincial parties versus staying core to traditional NDP values. Things like that, where there is some tension, on things like the oil sector. Allowing some of that to bubble up not only is healthy for the party's internal democracy, but it also prepares them for having to debate other party leaders down the road. And this is something that I think is quite valuable, that often gets done in American politics and much more rarely in Canada. And it's why in general elections, sometimes our politicians are not super skillful debaters, is because a lot of the time, none of them have actually truly debated before. They've given speeches in parliament and they've done these kinds of inner party things, but they haven't actually had somebody up until a federal leaders debate truly going after them. And that is something valuable that I wish the NDP would allow for a little bit more. I think it's shameful that there's only 2 debates in this contest. It makes the fact that Eve Engler was kept out of this one by his both his slowness in applying with the party and the party's slowness in working with him to get him through that process as quickly as possible once he had submitted his application 17 days ago. That would have been a valuable thing. And so there needs to be more opportunity for the leadership candidates to flesh out their visions, to be forced by each other to get a little bit more specific on some of these points. If we kind of go through what we just watched, and if you did come in after the debate ended, the debate is now over. We are looking at what happened during. Feel free to drop your feedback in the chat if you do have some thoughts on what we watched. I think that it's important to allow people to have the opportunity to discuss what happened and to go over it a little bit. So we'll keep this stream going for maybe another 15-20 minutes, and then we'll say goodnight. I think that overall, where I'm at, and if you didn't hear my earlier thing, I was a party member. I first joined the NDP as a teenager in 2010. And then I very shortly thereafter began serving on my local EDA executive, and I served there for a number of years. So that's my experience with the party. I was at one time the president of the Brock University NDP, and the president of my local riding association. I stopped being a member of the party in 2019, and I've just rejoined to vote in this leadership. Kyle, I was impressed by Rob, I think, the most. He certainly kind of caught me off guard the most, and I quite liked every time he contributed something, whether I specifically agreed with what he was saying or not, and most of the time I did. I enjoyed his general vibe. I enjoyed the fact that he was willing to shake things up. He was willing to just tell it like it was in a couple of moments where the rest of them were kind of talking around the issue. So I quite liked Rob. I was certainly, I think, the most unexpectedly impressed by him. I think Avi Lewis performed very close to how I expected. I really liked him. I really like a lot of what he has to say, and he did a lot to kind of drive home his core points in his campaign. I think his team probably got the social media clips that they were looking for out of it, which is, after all, what a lot of these debates have become, is just kind of the teams then feeding it into their editors to pull their specific clips to kind of push out likely over the next couple of weeks. Yeah, I think Rob was quite good on the union points. He definitely, I mean, his credibility on union issues as a union president is unlike any of the other candidates, unlike anybody that we've really seen on a federal NDP leadership debate stage in a long time. And so his ability to fundamentally talk about things that the rest of them, from a real perspective, that the rest of them only kind of can talk about from theoretical, from having witnessed, is a really valuable asset to his campaign. Yeah, I think that there's a lot to be said about Rob's prospects in this race, GP Blue. Yeah, I think Avi probably, I kept saying during the debate, like, what it felt like Avi kept doing, Kyle, was he kept, the rest of them would all kind of say an important piece of whatever the issue was, and then Avi would kind of speak up during the open debate and tie it all together in a way that felt much more leader-like, I would say. Definitely really well-rounded. He definitely probably, I would guess, rehearsed the most, or at least kind of, like, Avi has been a journalist for more than 20 years. He comes from one of the NDP founding families. He is the most practiced in this kind of setting, and that very much comes across. Rob felt more real in his lack of polish, whereas Avi had a little bit more of the polish, but did a really good job of tying things together because of that ability to be a journalist in that way, right? Doing this kind of thing is not incredibly easy, and Avi has been doing it for a long time, and that came across in this situation. In terms of who disappointed me, Kyle, to get back to that part of your question, I don't know, like, I don't know if you could say I was disappointed by them. Yeah, that's a good point, Kyle. But I like that he was willing to own his deficiency in French, right? Like, there's something charming about that. There's something real about that, rather than acting like you can do it and not being able to do it in the way that we saw in the liberal leadership debates, and that kind of thing. This felt a little bit more real in terms of that, so I'd give him points on that. Yeah, I mean, I struggle with Heather McPherson. I do. I think that she has valuable things to say and that she brings um that she brings some experience in parliament, which is important to this kind of thing. But I worry about how close she is to the Alberta Party, given their kind of centrist tilt under Naheed Nenshi. I worry about her being a kind of legacy Jagmeet candidate, and being able to be painted with that. I don't think she is talking about enough bold policies that really fundamentally would be life changing for people. Her insistence to bring every question about the working class, about the cost of living crisis, about all of those points back to housing. While housing is a key issue and one that we need a really good plan on, one that we need to be really focusing on, it is not the end all and be all of the cost of living crisis. And whereas like Avi Lewis and Rob Ashton and Tony McQuail and even Tennille Johnston to a certain extent were all addressing other ways of making life more affordable for people, the Heather McPherson only wanted to talk about housing. She did not address other ways of increasing affordability that I can recall. And if she did, it was very, very insignificant in terms of the totality of her answers. Yeah, the Alberta NDP is not a real NDP at this point. Naheed Nenshi literally defined himself as purple because it's between liberal and conservative. The They have and like that's fine. Alberta's a two-party system at this point, and yeah, absolutely. Like she really did not want to touch those issues because she's beholden to that constituency in this race, and she wants to be a continuity candidate that is pushing the other parties to an extent, right? Like the actually funny thing is when you get down to the debate that Carl Belanger, the moderator of the debate, tried to kind of trigger around, do you want to be the conscience of parliament or do you want power? The reality is that like it's the moderate wing of the party that would rather be um fundamentally the conscience of parliament, because they're totally satisfied trying to push the liberals into a slightly more progressive direction, the way that they traditionally have when the moderates have kind of been in power in minority situations. It's the leftists in the party that actually want to take control of government to be able to bring about fundamental change for people. So I appreciated what Avi Lewis said about the dichotomy of the false dichotomy of that choice. I'm just going to go through GP Blue, what you're saying about each of the candidates here, because I think that there's some value to them. Yeah, Avi is an academic activist, and he speaks like one, but I don't know that he immediately alienates people unless he actually doesn't learn some of those lessons, right? Like if Avi Lewis wins the leadership, he immediately has to get Rob Ashton on board, not just to help speak to some of those people, but to help him learn how to talk in that kind of more frank, fundamental working class way. I don't know that if he's proposing some of these bold strategies, he isn't capable of pulling off really drawing working class votes in the way that like Zoran Mamdani talked in a lot of the same ways that Avi Lewis talks, but was able to fundamentally keep bringing things back to affordability. And that allowed him to pull the working class vote and win. I think that there is some prospect to that for Avi Lewis if he surrounds himself with the right people, if he spends the next number of months and beyond, if he wins the leadership, doing some of that fundamental work. Yeah, Tony McQuail's a good guy, is the honest truth of it. Like he's just fundamentally really a nice man who is proposing some important things and talking about some things that nobody else is talking about in the same way. But yeah, he doesn't super speak like a political leader. He doesn't have some of the oomph that I would like him to have coming from a rural riding criticizing the party establishment that has ignored rural ridings for so long. I tried to get him to do that in my interview with him, and he wasn't super willing to take that bait. And so that concerned me at that point. It concerned me again tonight. But yeah, nice guy talking about some good things. I agree. Like I like that Tony is talking about ending first past the post. It's an important issue, and I like that he's made it one of his signature points. And the rest of them are all going to need to work with him on that when one of them wins the leadership. One of the key points about Tony's plan on PR, incidentally, that he expanded on in my interview with him. There's a link to my interview with him in the chat. Consider watching it. It's a really good conversation. And one of the key points that he talks about there is that he would institute a PR system and then wouldn't have a referendum on it for at least 2 election cycles afterwards. So people would experience voting in PR and then be able to, for a couple of times, and then be able to vote to go back to the old way. And that's such a key point. And what we see in a number of international cases where they've done something similar to that is that when parties try to have a referendum to put in PR initially, it fails. But if they just institute it and let people experience it for a couple of elections, nobody ever votes to go back. It's something where as soon as you have experienced it for a couple of election cycles and you understand it, you're able to do that. Yeah, I think that like the team that we saw on stage tonight was a pretty good team, and they all have weak points and they all have strong points. And I think that some of them are going to be what the party needs in combination going forward. But they need to have some really strong framework going forward. I think that some combination of Rob Ashton and Avi Lewis working together with support from the others could be incredibly powerful going forward. Losing my voice here. It's been almost a 2-hour stream, guys. We're not going to keep it going for much longer. If you have any final thoughts, please throw them in the chat. Otherwise, like I've already said, please consider subscribing if you're not already subscribed. Check out the rest of the videos on the channel. I have a lot of great interviews with there, like the one with Tony McQuail, like ones with Eve Angler, who is another candidate in this race, and I hope to see on the stage next time. Thanks, Kyle, for tuning in. Check out the rest of the channel, absolutely. We'll continue to do these kinds of streams as big moments in this race happen, as other big political moments happen. I really appreciate your support, everyone. I do once again have a Patreon. The link to that is in the description of the YouTube channel. And there is I do have TikTok. You can follow me on there. Instagram. I'm on Blue Sky. All that fun stuff. Once again, thanks so much for joining me. I appreciate the community. I appreciate everyone coming in. We had a great time. If you're just coming in now, there's a couple of people who are just coming in now. I am about to end the stream. Thanks so much, everyone, and we'll see you next time. This stream will stay active on the channel, so if you want to watch it, rewatch it, if you want to share it, please feel free. Once again, have a great night. I've been Noam, and this has been a special edition, live edition of No Power Panel. We'll see you next time. Good night.